This is Linda Middlesworth with Vegan Mentor. And I'm so pleased today to present our new speaker, Dr. Rosane Oliveira. She is amazing. She's the founding director of the Integrative Medicine program. She's an adjunct professor of the public health sciences at the School of Medicine at UC Davis, University of California, Davis. And she's so stupid, she has 20 years of scientific experience in molecular genetics. I mean, I would fail that class in 2 seconds. I don't know how she does that. Anyway, and she writes about health and nutrition every single week in her very popular blog, and she teaches lifestyle medicine to medical students at UC Davis as well. What we need to do is clone you to go to every single university in the United States and teach lifestyle medicine so we don't have to deal with doctors who have no idea what's going on. Can you do that? Her talk today is going to be habits. We can have good or bad ones, but she's going to talk about habits, how to bridge the gap between knowing and doing. And with that, I present to you Dr. Rosane Oliveira.
Thank you so much, Linda. People that are here with us today have no idea that you've been trying to get me to participate in this event maybe 2-3 years, and it took COVID to make it happen. So it's such a pleasure for me to be here. I've heard so many wonderful things about this event, and it's just an honor to be part of it this year. I'm super, super excited.
Thank you.
As Linda mentioned, my talk today is going to be about habits, because they are the key to bring you from a place where you know what you should be doing to a place where you're actually doing or making the choices that are best for you. Because many of you have, or us, have struggled through our lives with knowing what is best for us. We know which foods we should be avoiding, which foods we should be eating. That's no secret for any of us, but there's this gap between knowing what you need to be doing and actually doing it. And the key to bridge that gap is really habits. And that's why I'm so excited to present this lecture to you today. And then when we discuss food, many of us may have this naive idea that we can make food choices based on our own reason, based on logic. But that's not true, because food is not rational. Food is about culture. Food is about habit. Food is about craving, and food is about identity. And I'm going to be discussing all of that today. But before I move into sharing 3 big lessons that I want you to be able to take from today's presentation, I want to give you an overview of how the brain works. So this cartoon shows that the brain is divided into 3 different regions: a pinkish area, an orange area, and the blue area. And when we look at the pinkish part of the brain, that is what we call the human brain, or the neocortex. So evolutionary speaking, it's the part of the brain that developed most recently when we compare to the other parts of the brain. And this part, the human brain, or the neocortex, is responsible for language, for imagination, for consciousness. And that's where we have reason. That's where we have rational thought. And if there were 2 words to describe this part of the brain, they would be language and logic. And we need to remember that. But the most interesting part of the brain, at least for me, it's what we call the mammalian brain, or the emotional brain. That's the limbic system. That's where we have our emotions. There's also where our memories are stored, where our decisions are made, and where our habits are formed. Think about it. I want you to be able to remember this particular slide and this particular information throughout today's presentation. Think about it. This part of the brain has emotions. It's where our memories are stored. It's where habits are formed and where decisions are made. So when we think about decisions, it's another naive idea that we believe that our decisions are made based on reason. No, decisions are made based on emotion. And the two words that define this part of the brain are the two P's, and it's pain and pleasure. So every decision we make, it's based on whether or not it's going to bring pleasure and decrease pain in our lives. Then the blue part of the brain, it's what is called the reptilian brain, and is the part of the brain that is responsible for our survival. And it works in autopilot, and it's where fight or flight resides. So when we talk about fight or flight, that's where it happens. So now we're ready for lesson number 1. And when we discuss habits, I want you to think about this. Lesson number 1 is that emotions drive habits. And now that I've showed you that emotions and habits and decisions are all in the same part of the brain, the emotional brain, you understand why that is. So emotions are what drive habits. And when we think about habits, usually we think habits is just what we do. But habit responds or works through a cycle. There's a cue that triggers us or drives us into our behavior, what we call custom, and then drives us into a carrot or a reward. So again, when we think about, oh, I have some bad habits, eating related habits. I eat chocolate cake every day in the evening. I eat cookies at work. I drink soda. We only think that this is what I do, that the habit is just a custom. We ignore the fact that there's always a trigger, there's always a cue that drives us to this behavior. And the cue that takes us into the behavior are feelings and emotions associated with loss. And the 4 emotions that we tend to focus on are anxiety, boredom, sadness, and shame. So when we think about reasons or triggers that take us into the behaviors we want to change, those are the emotions that are taking us there, they're driving us there. And the flip side is that we go into the behavior because it allows us to, at the end of the behavior, feel better. So we are going after more positive emotions. And what would they be? So they will bring a sense of safety or a sense of satisfaction, self-respect, self-esteem. And then basically it's what we are looking. So they would be the counter for the trigger that drove us into the behavior. So if anxiety is what has driven us into a behavior, what we are looking for is a sense of safety, certainty, comfort. And then the other emotions that we are going after are variety and certainty, love and belonging, esteem, or significance. And I'm going to go into more detail on all of these emotions and the motivation, so the carrots that we are going after under lesson 2. But before I go there, I want to just really quickly mention to you what are the 3 biggest mistakes people make when they try to change a bad habit in their lives. And now that you understand how a habit cycle works, it's easy for you to understand. So the first mistake is that when we think about a bad behavior that we want to eliminate from our lives, we think that we can just do that. If I drink soda every day mid-morning, or if I eat a cookie at work, or if I eat chocolate cake in the evening, I said, all I have to do is say, I quit. Starting tomorrow, I'm not going to eat that anymore, and that's it. And I have to rely on willpower. That will never work. Why is that? Because a behavior can only be replaced, never completely eliminated. And why is that? Because in our lives, the cues are going to continue to exist. If we try to remove a bad habit from our lives, ignoring the fact that there are cues, There are feelings and emotions that we will continue to feel on a consistent basis. The driver, the trigger will exist in our lives. And if we just try to remove something bad, something else, and usually bad, is going to take its place. So you have to be mindful about that. You have to choose something to replace your bad habit instead of trying to eliminate. And that's one of the reasons why you have failed in the past. The other mistake that people make is that they believe that the reward is the behavior itself. They believe that the cue, if the cue is anxiety or sadness, that is driving them into the behavior or eating a cookie in the afternoon when they're at their work, they believe that that's the reward. The reward is the feeling. Even if the good feeling is short-lived, it doesn't matter. What we are going after is the emotion. So the reward is never the behavior, and the reward needs to happen instantaneously. And so that's another mistake people make when they say, instead of eating the chocolate cake, I'm going to go for a walk. But you're only going to start to feel better or have good emotions after the walk is completed. So you have to get up, you have to change, you have to go out of your house or out of your office. You have to wait for the walk to be done, and then you're going to, of course, have endorphins. You will feel better, but it's going to take a long time. The reason why you go for the cookie or the soda or the cake is because once you go into the behavior, you get the feeling. So when you are thinking about replacing a habit, you need to think that whatever you're doing needs to be able to give you that good feeling right after the behavior is completed. And that's another reason why a lot of people fail. The third reason, the big reason why people fail, is because they try to do too much at once. They say, yes, it's New Year's. I know it's not New Year's anymore, and that's why it's so good to have this event in February. But there's always people trying to get like a clean slate. It's a new month. And so tomorrow is Monday, March 1st. And I'll be able to start my habits. So I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to remove dairy. I'm going to remove sugar. I'm going to remove oil. I'm going to do all of this at once. But while some people can do a lot at once, most people will benefit and will be more successful if they choose one habit at a time and they start a new habit every month. And then over the course of 12 months, over the course of a year, they can change 12 habits. But you have to, so that's the power of one habit at a time, then you can focus and your chances of succeeding are going to be higher. And the last thing I want to say about habits is that also, on average, the sweet spot for a habit to be formed, you have to be working on the habit consistently, meaning every single day, for 66 days. Some habits may be formed in shorter time than that, and some habits may take longer. It may take 284 days, but the average, the sweet spot is 66 days. So if you're thinking about adopting a new habit, or if you're thinking about changing one of your bad habits, and now you know you have to replace it with something else instead of just trying to eliminate it altogether, you have to be consistent and work on this habit for at least 66 days. And then the likelihood that it will be a new habit, a new health promoting habit, is going to be higher. Okay, now our lesson number 2. And that is that motivation is about meeting your needs. What am I talking when I say meeting your needs? Because when we think about motivation, most people think about logical reasons, rational reasons to do something. When we ask people, why is it that you want to adopt a whole food plant-based diet? Why is it that you want to give up meat, dairy, pork, chicken, fish, and add sugar, oil, salt, all of the things, wine, all of the things that we kind of recommend people do for a healthier life. People, the reasons that we hear most often than not are, I want to lose weight, I want to reverse my type 2 diabetes, or I want to reverse my hypertension. I want to feel healthier. I want to be able to do more. So all of these are great reasons, but they are all logical reasons. And remember, from the one of the very first slides in this presentation today, the decisions we make, for us to make decisions in our brain, it's part of the emotional brain. We make decisions and we create habits based on emotion. So when we're looking for reasons to change and adopt new habits, we need to focus on emotion. I don't have a slide about that in this presentation, but I always say it's something that I've heard many years ago from Tony Robbins, and he says it has to be the why that makes you cry. Why is it that people that focus on changing their diet because of compassion for animals tend to stick more to never eating animal foods again versus someone that is doing for health? Because when you're doing for compassion for animals, you have an emotional driver behind it. And that's why it's so important for you to bring emotion. So if you're doing for healthy or for health related reasons, you need to make it very emotional. The flip side is that we see a lot of vegans that have stopped eating animal foods for the animals, but it's very hard for them to then continue to tweak their diet and remove added sugar, oil, salt, remove meat and dairy replacement, because for them to take a further step, they are lacking the emotional reason. But if you have emotional reason, you go all the way. Let me go into a little more detail. So when we talk about motivation is related to our needs, I want to go back and review this that some of you may be aware of. These are Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When we think about our needs, are the needs of the body, the needs of the personality, and the needs of the soul. So at the very bottom of the pyramid, those would be the needs of the body. Those are physiological needs. We all have the needs for, we know, food, water, and shelter in general terms. But what happens is that most of us have those needs met. And when we have those needs met, then we start looking for ways to meet the other needs, also in black. There we call the needs of the personality, and we want to meet them on a consistent basis. We want to be able to meet them every single day. And what would be those needs? The first one, again, right above the physiological needs, would be safety related needs. We need to feel safe, like physical safe. We need to make sure that we live in a neighborhood where people are not going to mug us, they're not going to assault us. So we have this need for physical safety. We also have a need for financial safety. We want to make sure that tomorrow I'll be able to buy food, because it goes back to my physiological need for food and shelter and water. So they are a little related, but one is very physical and the other one is emotional. Then going above that, the next need is, we all have the need to love, to be loved, and to belong, to be part of something that goes beyond us. Then the other need that we have is the need for esteem. We want to be appreciated. We want others to respect us. We want to respect ourselves. So those would be the needs of the personality. Then in blue would be the need of the spirit, or the need of the soul. And the first one is self-actualization. So there is our inner need to know that we can accomplish our highest potential, that everything that we do every single day is leading us to get to our highest potential as human beings. And then Maslow, Abraham Maslow, he passed away before he could publish that would have been his latest or his last paper, where he actually had another need, which is the need for self-transcendence. That means once you hit your highest potential, once you are happy with who you have become as an individual, then you're ready to transcend that and help others get to where you are. So then many, many years later, Tony Robbins tried to represent or teach those needs in a different way. And instead of calling Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he calls them the 6 basic human needs. And then they have different names, but they are representing what we've just seen in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I'm bringing this information because from now on, I'm going to use this terminology because it's easier for us to understand than Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So according to Tony Robbins, then we have 6 basic needs, and they are the needs for certainty, uncertainty, significance, and connection. So those 4 would be the needs of the personality. And of course, they are going to have a correlation with Maslow's needs of the personality. And we have the need for growth and for contribution. And those would be the needs of the soul or the needs of the spirit. And then I've just mentioned, if we focus on the needs of the personality, because those are the ones they're going to bring trouble into our lives. Those are the carrots. Those are the needs that we are trying to meet when we go into certain behaviors. Remember, behaviors start with a cue. We go into the behavior, we go into the habit, and then we get a carrot. The carrot we are all going for are those needs, are those behaviors helping us meet those 4 needs on a consistent basis. And those will be, and you can see the certainty equals safety in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Uncertainty, there's no correlation with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Connection, according to Tony Robbins, would represent love and belonging in the pyramid, and significance would be the equivalent of esteem in the pyramid. And as I mentioned before, they are connected to the habit cycle. So if someone is going into a behavior of eating cookies in the afternoon at work, drinking soda, eating chocolate cake, I'm going to be repeating these habits throughout the presentation. And the cue, the trigger that is driving this person into the behavior is anxiety. On the other end, what they are looking for is a feeling of certainty, a feeling of safety. Something is missing. They want to feel that they have control. And before they are feeling they're out of control, and that's most likely why anxiety is coming, but that's what they're going after. If someone's cue is sadness, they feel sad, and they go into the behavior of eating the cookie or eating the chocolate cake, what they are going after, the carrot they're going after is love. So the cake is bringing what? Is bringing connection or love and belonging into your life. So that's what we all want, and that's how everything is connected. Now I'm going to go into a little deeper detail into each one of the needs. When we think about motivation, what is your motivation to do certain things, to follow a whole food plant-based diet? Many of us have been able to succeed because without noticing, by changing our diet, we are meeting those needs on a consistent basis. And that's what we've been able to be so successful. But now that you know what they are, it's easier for you to create your own habits, knowing that they will help you get there as well. So the first need is the need for certainty. So we have this need to create or increase pleasure and eliminate or decrease pain. Again, is related to our emotional brain, because emotional brain is the one that works with the duality of pain and pleasure. But the certainty, we have this need for comfort, And it's not a coincidence that we call comfort foods comfort foods. We have this need for security, and we have this need for survival. So certainty is the need that guarantees our survival. And that's why we go to comfort foods, because comfort foods equals survival for our brain. But as I said before, we have our triggers, our cues that drive us into the behavior so that we can get a carrot. But different behaviors can give us the same carrot. So there are good ways of getting the carrot of certainty. There are bad ways of getting the same carrot of certainty, and there are ugly ways, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that will drive you there. So there are positive, neutral, or bad ways to get there. So how is it that we can get certainty or meet the need for certainty in our day-to-day lives? We can do that by being consistent about anything. If we have consistency in our lives, we feel certainty, we feel safety. We can do that by completing everything that we start. There's a level of certainty in starting something and finishing a project or finishing anything that we start before. We can get certainty through being organized, through organization or things, or we can get certainty through faith. The bad way of getting certainty is when we are so safe with what we do, with our surroundings, that we don't want to change anything. Those will be people that are certainty driven are the people that are risk averse. They don't want to change anything in their lives. They don't want to change their job. And they, for sure, it's going to be very hard for them to want to change their diet. If they change it, it's going to bring anxiety, because anxiety is the flip side of certainty. And also they may learn to have this feeling of learned helplessness, meaning if they feel helpless, they at least can say, I'm helpless, but then I don't need to find in myself the strength to make changes in my life. So it kind of protects you and keeps you getting certainty from not changing anything in your lives. And then the ugly side of it is addictive behavior. Of all the 4 needs or true motivators or emotional motivators that we have in our lives, 2 of them are the ones that are going to be related to addictive behaviors. When we talk about I'm addicted to sugar, I'm addicted to cookies, I'm addicted to soda, I'm addicted to anything, it's what we are saying is that I have an addictive behavior of eating certain foods or drinking certain beverages. And when I do that, of all the needs, I'm getting certainty and some other ones to boot. And we're going to be discuss that as well. So uncertainty would be kind of the flip side of certainty, is our need to create or increase variety, to have challenge in our lives, to have surprise, and to have change. So if even people, they are certainty driven, if you were to tell them how every single day of their lives would look like from today until the day they died, they wouldn't like that. There's no surprise. There's nothing. There's no room for you to change anything, the good or the bad. So we all need a certain level of uncertainty. Then, but the same way of certainty, we can get there through good, bad, or ugly ways. A good way of getting a certainty is going for an adventure. Good way of getting certainty is being able to adapt to new things in our lives. Having multiple interests bring uncertainty or variety into our lives. A bad way would be getting uncertainty through always distracting yourself, spending 8 hours in front of Netflix instead of really taking care of business in our lives. And this is the other need that is related to addictive behavior. Mm-hmm. Then the third need is our need for significance, is our need to have a sense of purpose, being needed and have meaning in our lives, is our need to feel special, unique, and important. And as before, with the other needs, there's a good way, bad way, and ugly way to get to feel important, special. And we can do that through having purpose, through our achievements, through feeling, looking, or behaving in a unique way through compassion. So we get a lot of compassion we get a lot of significance in our lives, our need for significance when we are compassionate vegans, because that shows that we are different because we care for animals in a different way. Okay. Bad ways would be getting to feel unique or significant because of your position, the job you have, how much money you make. That would be focused on status through you focusing on yourself, or, and this one is very important, by this hope that you somehow can be perfect, that everything you do and in your lives and that you are as an individual perfect. None of us are perfect. None of us have perfect days. None of us do everything perfectly, but that would be when we are stuck in trying to be perfect. That's the bad side. We are trying to meet the need for significance through perfectionism, and that's not a good thing. And the ugly side of it is anger. Then the last of the 4 needs of the personality is our need for connection, is our need to feel a part of something bigger, at one with something that is bigger than us. It's our need to feel at one, as I said, with everything else, to bond and to have intimacy in our lives. And the good side of connection, we can meet connection by loving and being loved, by sharing, bonding, by being part of a community. So if we are part of a whole food plant-based community, we get connection from that as well. The bad way of getting to connection, to meet the need for connection, would be self-sacrifice, or just settling for what you have without wanting something else, because you're just too afraid that if you say out loud that you want things to be differently, people around you may leave you. And the ugly side of it would be you getting to feel connected by having a big problem, because once you have a big problem, everybody comes around you and start asking, oh, poor you, can I help you? It's an ugly way of getting connection, but we can get connection this way as well. So again, just to summarize what I've just mentioned, so when we go into certain behaviors, we have certain habits in our lives, is because we have triggers, and those cues or triggers are the ones that most often than not are driving the behaviors we want to change. Then the second column here shows what is the carrot, what is the feeling, the emotion we are after, and how is it that the behavior is helping us meet the needs that we need to meet on a consistent way. And then before we finish this lesson 2, I want to say this, and this is very important. Any behavior that gives us or helps us meet at least 3 of the 4 needs of the personality at an 8 or above, meaning 10 would be the highest grade that I can give to this experience, and 1 would be the lowest grade I can give to this experience. So any behavior that gives us an 8 or higher in 3 or 4 of the needs will become a vice, because it's helping us meet those needs at a very high level on a consistent basis. And I'm just going to share 2 examples. The first one would be like when we eat dessert, and it could be any food. It's just that it's easy to get the point across with brownies, but it can be ice cream, it can be anything. How can you meet certainty by eating dessert, by eating sugar, by eating brownies or chocolate ice cream? Yes, you can. Remember, certainty, it's equals comfort, and those are comfort foods. They comfort us. They are related to our survival. Yes, you can meet them through food. Can you meet variety? Yes, there's so much variety in food. There's variety in texture and flavor. You can get variety. There's different types of brownies, different types of chocolates you can use. Yeah, you can get variety. Can you get significance? Can you feel unique and different just by eating this way? Yes. If you link food with your your identity, then of course it's very easy to do that. When you say I'm a chocoholic, you are saying that you're different than most people because you like chocolate more than anybody else. Or when you are known in your family to be the best baker in your family, you also, it's part of your identity, it's part of who you are. When you say that nobody can eat a brownie faster than me, also you're creating uniqueness, or you get significance as well. Can you get connection? Very easily. If you're sharing food with others, is one of the fastest way for you to get connection. And that's one of the reasons was a lot of people struggle when they change their diet and those around them don't change, because they want to continue to eat the same food so they can get connection. So you can get all four. And even if you're eating by yourself, you also get connection with yourself. So you get all four, and you're going to get all four at an 8 or above. Yes, it is. And that's why it's an addictive behavior, and that's why it's a vice. And another example would be alcohol, just to make it very simple to understand. And I know I wanted to mention this because when we discuss whole food plant-based nutrition, one of the first questions we get is, what about wine? And I say, wine is the same thing. It can become an addictive behavior. Why? Can you get to certainty through drinking alcohol? Same way that you can get with food. Yes. If you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling out of control, when you drink alcohol, do you relax? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel, even if momentarily, do you feel that, yes, I feel like I'm in control again? Yes, you do. Do you get uncertainty or variety through drinking alcohol? Yes, look at the variety. And even if you pick one type of alcohol, if you drink beer, how many different types of beer can you find? And how many different types of wine can you find? Yes, you get a lot of variety. Do you get significance from drinking alcohol? Yes. Can you be unique about drinking alcohol? Yes. Many people are very proud because they know their wine, they drink the wine, and I say, oh yes, this was a perfect year for this cab, or this is a fantastic grape, came from Australia, or there's this aura, there's uniqueness around people that know their wine. And the same thing can happen that people that know their scotch, or people that know their beer, so they can get significance, this feeling of being unique in a certain way through alcohol as well. Can they get connection? Yes, a lot of people, aside from alcoholics that would continue to drink alcohol when they are alone, most people drink socially. So it brings a lot of connection. And so that's why it's so hard to change that habit. And that's why it can become an addictive behavior, because you meet the 4 needs at an 8 or above. For you to be able to change a behavior, you need to be able to bring down the level of pleasure or bring down the grade you give yourself on how you perceive whether or not you're meeting those needs through the behavior. This is something that goes beyond today's presentation, but that's how you would do it. And this is the message I want to take from this part of the presentation of lesson 2, is that we see a lot of people using food or alcohol to numb emotions because they have a trigger, a cue, there is a negative feeling they want to stop feeling. They go into the behavior so they can get the carrot, they can get the significance, the love, the connection, the certainty or safety, comfort, and they can get variety. But when we numb our painful emotions, we also numb the positive ones. So when we do that, when we are stuck in those behaviors, we are also preventing or robbing ourselves from feeling amazing, because we numb both negative and positive. So in the last lesson of today's class, so to speak, or presentation, is this, that habits prevent decision fatigue. And this could be good or it can be bad. It's bad when habits have been formed so many years ago that now when we try to decide whether or not we should eat the cookie or the chocolate cake or drink the soda, we don't decide anymore, but it has been decided in the past. But the good thing about habits preventing decision fatigue is when we create a new habit, you won't have to decide as much. And why is that habits prevent decision fatigue? Because about 40% of what we do on any given day is driven by habits. And habits are formed to do what? To save mental effort. If the brain realizes that we tend to do things over and over and says, wait a minute, it looks like that she does that every single day. So instead of having to decide, should I brush my teeth or not? Should I drink water or not? Should I get dressed today or not? So those things, I think we can make a decision right then and there. And that's why we create a cue that drives us into the behavior that gives us a carrot, because we feel so good after we do the behavior, we continue to do it. So if we brush our teeth and we feel amazing after we brush our teeth, we will continue to do that. But that's what the brain's trying to do, save mental energy. And decisions are always a cost-benefit analysis. The brain always wants the biggest benefit for the lowest cost. And again, decisions are made in the part of the brain that is all about emotions. So when we make a decision, it's to prevent feeling pain. So if you think about a habit that you've been trying to change and you haven't been able to, it's because your brain links change to pain. So all you have to do is answer this question. What is the pain that you've been associating with the behavior that you want to change? And as long as you're associating pain to change, it's going to be very hard for you to actually change. And the flip side is that your brain is also associating no change to pleasure. And you have to then answer this question. What is it that you're getting from not taking action? So part of you wants to stop eating cake or eating the chocolate cookie, but you're getting pleasure from not changing the behavior. And you need to get real about that so you can actually change. So just like a quick recap is that habits will protect you from having to change or making decisions. So if you have good habits and good associations in your brain that tell you why the cookie equals pain, not giving the cookie up is pain, but actually the cookie is pain, you don't need to decide anymore. You look at the cookie and your brain made a decision that is not good for you. And so the last thing I wanted to say is this: most people have the biggest trouble in keeping habits is in the evening because they don't have an evening routine. And evenings are usually bad for two reasons. One, we spend the whole day making decisions. Should I do this or should I do that? So should I avoid this or should I eat this? But because we are using our mental effort is geared towards everything else that we need to do on that day. We need to do laundry, pay our bills, drive to the grocery store, cook, clean, take care of our kids, call our mom, and all of those things. Our mental effort is going toward that. When it gets to the end of the day, any decision that we made about food kind of also drained our, so to speak, willpower. And at the end of the day, we have something called decision fatigue. We just don't want to decide anymore. So the first thing that shows up in front of us, we'll eat or we'll drink. And the second reason why evenings are so hard for us is, like I said, we spend the whole day, our mental effort is going everywhere but us. But when it comes to the evening, that's when our attention goes to ourselves. That's when our mind starts wandering. That's when the mental chapter gets worse. And that's when we start to connect with those cues that we spend the whole day putting aside. So that's when anxiety really comes in, sadness and such. And so that's why it's so hard for us to control ourselves in the evening. So after everything that I've discussed, the message that I want to take from today's presentation is this: that you have to be mindful, you have to be proactive when it comes to creating your habits, because once you make the right habits, those habits are going to make you, and you will be able to live a very healthy and happy life. Thank you so much.